welcome. Now, WION travelled to India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands, where navies from 17 countries are participating in the exercise Milan, hosted by India. Now, this exercise aims to enhance India's cooperation with countries from Southeast Asia. WION senior correspondent Raghavendra Rao brings you this report.
India is playing host to navies from 16 countries at Port Blair. Named Milan, it's the biggest multilateral naval exercise on high seas. This was the 10th edition of the exercise. It kicked off in 1995. Back then, only 4 countries, Singapore, Indonesia, Sri Lanka and Thailand, took part in the event. More than 20 years later, the exercise has grown in stature and scale. This year's edition was the largest gathering of warships since 1995.
While conducting anti-piracy operations or in crisis situations like the tsunami, various navies of the world run into each other at the high seas. Often during these situations, these navies find it hard to communicate between themselves and act in a coordinated fashion. An exercise like Milan is aimed at developing a basic sense between these navies so that whenever they meet in a situation that demands concerted and cooperative effort, they are able to deliver. The fact that so many navies are participating in this year's Milan is a testimony to India's growing influence in the naval arena.
The Milan exercise is part of the Indian government's Act East policy. It comes at a crucial time as the Chinese Navy has increased its presence in the Indian Ocean region.
You mentioned Indian Ocean, sir. Chinese and the threat posed by the Chinese has been talked about a lot. And every now and then we hear about how the Chinese are growing and their influence is increasing in the Indian Ocean region. How big are they as a threat as far as India is concerned? And is the Indian Navy equipped enough and prepared enough to deal with this challenge?
You have to view the Indian Ocean region as an ocean which is almost 4,000 nautical miles from China. And what is the deployable force levels which can be put by the Chinese Navy in Indian Ocean? The balance of power and favorably rests in our favor in the Indian Ocean region. We are the largest navy in the region and I don't foresee any threat.
This year's theme was friendship across the seas. On Sunday, 20 warships left the docks for the high seas, where they are presently engaged in grueling exercises.
Strategizing is over. The tabletop exercise have been done and dusted. Now it is time for some real action at the high seas. 20 ships, including 11 from foreign navies and 9 from the Indian Navy, are now sailing off the Port Blair coast and headed to the high seas, where over the next couple of days, they'll be engaging in complex exercises and maneuvering. The idea is to learn from each other, share best practices, and lay down a standard operating procedure for a day when a crisis erupts and all these navies run into each other at the high seas. The learning they have acquired at Milan 2018 will be of immense value whenever a crisis like that emerges. In Port Blair with video journalist Libin, Raghavendra Rao, WION.
Now, INS Sahyadri, or the F-49, is a Shivalik-class stealth multi-role warship of the Indian Navy. It's one of India's main frontline warships and has capabilities any navy would be proud to have. Now, built at the Mazagon Dock Limited in Mumbai, INS Sahyadri was commissioned into the Indian Navy in 2012 in Indian Navy's Eastern Naval Command. At this year's Milan multilateral naval exercise in the Andamans and Nicobar Islands, INS Sahyadri is one of Indian Navy's most potent warships on display. In fact, it is INS Sahyadri which is the lead ship of the final high seas exercise of Milan 2018. WION's Raghavendra Rao went on board INS Sahyadri and witnessed this stealth frigate from very close quarters. He also spoke to INS Sahyadri's commanding officer Anil Jaggi to understand what INS Sahyadri is all about and what it is capable of. Take a look.
We are on board INS Sahyadri. It is a frontline ship of Indian Navy's Eastern Fleet. I'm joined by the commanding officer of this ship, Captain Anil Jaggi. Tell us a little about Sahyadri, the capabilities which it offers to the Indian Navy.
Right. Raghavendra, firstly, welcome on board INS Sahyadri, and as you brought out, it is a frontline warship of the Eastern Fleet. It is a stealth frigate, and with all pride and humility, I would like to say that it is indigenously constructed by our very own shipyard, Mazagon Docks Limited. As the name would tell you, a stealth frigate means that it is a very potent platform. It has all the capabilities to take on an adversary in all the three dimensions, whether it is surface, air or subsurface.
Right.
So in effect, we have missiles which are capable of taking an air target. We have sonar and underwater sensors as well as weapons to take on a submarine and also to take on an enemy surface warship.
Also, sir, for the benefit of our viewers, just explain the manner in which a stealth warship like Sahyadri manages to dodge the enemy.
As the name and the term specifies, stealth in term means that you are able to hide yourself, and you would appreciate that any warship can be detected in three manners. One is by the acoustic signature, second is by the heat signature, and lastly it is by the radar signature. On all these three fronts, with respect to the design, the way machinery is fitted on board, and the way the acoustic signature has been reduced on board, it is difficult for an adversary ship to pick me up so easily. So that's why it's a stealth frigate and the only three of its kind in the Navy.
Thank you so much, Captain Jaggi, for talking to us. That was Captain Jaggi, the commanding officer of INS Sahyadri, one of the finest stealth frigates we have in the Indian Navy. In Port Blair with video journalist Libin, Raghavendra Rao, WION.
And Milan 2018, the multilateral naval exercise, is currently underway in India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands. 17 countries, including India, are participating in the 10th edition of Milan, and as many as 11 foreign warships, along with 9 warships of the Indian Navy, are now engaged in complex exercises on the high seas. Now, warships from Australia, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Singapore, Sri Lanka and Thailand are a part of this year's Milan, a biennial congregation of friendly navies. Now, Milan is an effective platform for social, cultural and professional interactions and promoting camaraderie, maritime cooperations and interoperability during humanitarian missions. WION's Raghavendra Rao met representatives from Oman, New Zealand, Indonesia and Australia at this year's Milan exercise and asked them about the biggest takeaways they were looking forward to from this exercise. Take a look.
At the 10th edition of Milan, 11 countries have sent representatives and 8 ships from foreign countries have landed at Port Blair. I have with me representatives from Oman and New Zealand. Let's try and get a sense from him about how they are reacting to Milan and what are the takeaways they are going to take back from here. I believe you are from the Royal Navy of Oman.
Of course, Commander Adnan from the Royal Navy of Oman. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's a good opportunity. Milan 18 is my first participation in this exercise and this gathering, and on the international level it's a big event, okay, for the South Pacific, Asia Pacific navies to participate.
Right.
Lots of main themes in the event. The seminar of In Pursuit of Maritime Good Order was a very good event. Lots of discussions, interruptions between the delegates from the different navies, the ships which participated with the ships officers and teams in the tabletop exercises. Okay, so learned a lot from that as well. Great deal of knowledge. Okay, have been great deal of knowledge learned from at all levels. The Indian Navy, represented by the Naval Component Commander of Andaman and Nicobar Island, are to be commended. They deserve to be commended on the very good planning and execution so far for this event.
Right. Yeah. And we also have a representative from New Zealand.
Yes.
Sir, what brings you here and what are the takeaways you are looking at when you go back from Milan?
Well, the reason I'm here is I came to Milan 2014 and the invitation to our Admiral was received once again, and I volunteered because it's a wonderful place. The experience was one of rewarding interaction with great professionals, and the hosting by the Indian Navy was quite superb. From a professional sense, it's the ability to connect with those who care around delivering professionalism at sea, and more importantly around humanitarian and disaster relief, of which we're all concerned. So it's a highly extraordinary, rewarding environment, and from New Zealand, it's a long way to come, and I enjoy it. It's fun.
Absolutely. And when various navies from different countries, they participate in a multilateral exercise like MILN, what are the challenges they are trying to redress when they exercise together, when they talk to each other? What are the issues they are trying to iron out or sort out amongst themselves?
I think first and foremost, it's just building that relationship. The ability to understand that we have common problems, common issues, but we all have a common cause. That is to work together in friendship, despite our barriers, politically, economically, languages. We are all professional mariners. So first and foremost, it's that trust. And around trust, we build relationships and our operations together.
Right. Thank you for talking to us, and wishing you all the best for MILN 2018. So there we had it, representatives from Oman and New Zealand who are here to participate in this year's MILN exercise in Port Blair. In Port Blair with video journalist Libin, Raghavendra Rao, WION.
And Raghavendra Rao himself joins me live from the WION newsroom. Good evening, Raghavendra. We saw your reports there. Now, were these exercises a show of strength or an opportunity to learn from each other, or both?
Well, countries like China would surely be keeping a close watch on an exercise like MILN 2018, given the fact that so many countries from the Southeast Asian region have actually participated this time around. But yes, the Indian Navy has clarified time and again that this exercise cannot be construed as a show of strength. It is not targeted against any country in particular, and no country should feel unduly worried about a multilateral exercise like this. That has been the Indian Navy's consistent position, but given the fact that the Chinese influence in the Indian Ocean region is a concern not just for the Indian Navy, but also for the navies of various other countries in the Southeast Asian region, and these countries are all coming together and exercising together on the high seas, it does send out a very strong message, and many countries will surely view it as a show of strength.
About the Chinese assertiveness in the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific, and given the fact that there were 17 odd navies jointly operating in the high seas, what was the message they were trying to send across to China?
Well, as I said, Ramesh, on the record, all navies, including the Indian Navy, would maintain that this exercise, it is not a show of strength. But yes, off the record, the fact that the Chinese influence and their growing assertiveness in the Indian Ocean region, this was a point which was discussed time and again at MILN. This was a subject or a topic which came up for discussions every now and then. Goes on to show that not just India, but many other countries in the Southeast Asian region, they are aware, and they are taking note of the growing Chinese assertiveness in the Indian Ocean region. And yes, it's probably an opportunity for all these smaller navies to come under the umbrella of a bigger navy like the Indian Navy and devise ways and means to keep the waters, international waters in the Indian Ocean safe and secure.
Right, and also, Raghavendra, when we talk about maritime security, now India wants to emerge as the net provider of security in the wider Indian Ocean region. So in your estimation, based on what you saw there, is India finally getting its act together insofar as the Indian Ocean is concerned?
Well, absolutely. No two ways about it, Ramesh. And the fact that India has taken the lead, this is the 10th edition of MILN. It has been happening biennially for the past many years. But the fact that, the vigor with which the Indian Defence Establishment, the Indian government per se, is pursuing an exercise like this, the effort which is going on to reach out to smaller nations, to smaller navies, and to bring them together on a common platform so as to be able to conduct an exercise of this scale and magnitude, does go on to show that India clearly realizes the fact that though it is the so-called big daddy in the Indian Ocean waters, but yes, it could do with some help from smaller navies. And, there may come a time when all these smaller countries of the Southeast Asian region may actually come in handy for India.
Right. On that note, Raghavendra Rao, thank you so much for joining me.